Across the thousands of discussions we're having with our clients year in, year out, and the survey data that we've been collecting, we see three key areas where talent management leaders and talent management itself is focused on for 2025. And the first is that talent leaders are really focused on modernizing talent management at their organizations to be better placed to provide the perennial need of the business to have the right talent in the right places at the right times. And this is particularly acute right now because, well, on the one hand, only 8% of talent management leaders told us when we surveyed them that their organizations have reliable data on their workforce's skills, let alone a rising skills needs. And on the other hand, we know that there is a shift happening right now in what skills organizations need. So that's the first trend. How can we modernize how we go about talent management to be more responsive? The second focus area is perennial, but it's especially acute in 2025, and that's leadership and leadership readiness. Um, Talent management leaders know their CEOs have ambitious growth and also transformation agendas, and that this is going to require strong leadership to protect workforce energy, workforce morale. But only 46%, fewer than half of HR leaders tell us they're satisfied with the quality of their leadership. And actually, leaders themselves, when we asked them earlier this year, fewer than a third of them at all levels said that change agility was a key strength of theirs. So, how strong is our leadership bench? Although year in, year out, a key talent management focus is particularly so in 2025. And then lastly, um, talent management leaders are ultra focused on growth as the key EVP lever to deliver the levels of employee performance and employee engagement required through this transformation that they expect their organization to go through. And we see that when employees can see themselves growing both personally and professionally at their organization, that their performance engagement thrives and can withstand high levels of change. But again, when we survey employees, and we surveyed just over 3,000 this year, only 44%, less than half of employees said that they were satisfied with the pace at which they're growing within the organization. And talent management leaders know this, and so they're really focused on that. I think two things come to mind immediately. And the first is if we step back and ask ourselves why these three trends are the talent management trends and focus areas that we're seeing across the organizations we partner with, I think they're really helpful in giving your readers and talent management leaders a window into the priorities of the business. And ultimately, one of the most important things we can do in talent management is to align our efforts towards business priorities. It's a common challenge that we see. So if you look behind the curtain of why we're trying to modernize talent management, why we're trying to get a quicker handle on what skills we need and what skills we have, um, that's because we know that our leadership, our executives are pivoting towards growth, those growth strategies. And we know that it's in the context of their looking at generative AI in particular and seeing, well, on average, what is it? An expectation of 17% productivity growth between over the course of 2024 and 2025. That's a day a week. So we know that there are these ambitious growth agendas, and in that context, we as talent management leaders know that there's going to be a shift in the sands of the skills needs of our organization. So that's the case. And similarly, if we think about leadership, again, we know that our workforces have been through a lot over the last 5 years, and to an extreme extent, and if we kind of look forward and think about that transformation agenda, that growth agenda, we know that there's going to be a lot of change and change management there. And um, focusing on leadership shows that you know that that's going to be a high priority, high ticket item from a talent management perspective. And similarly, that focus around growth is linked to that again. We need the best from our employees. We need the best performance and engagement. And actually, we know that if we look out to the external talent labor market, we know that it continues to be extraordinarily tight and competitive. So we're going to have to rely on an internal a build strategy. So I think each of these three trends and priorities give us a window. I think they're closely linked, really nicely linked to what the business is trying to do, what your organization's leadership are prioritizing. So that's the first thing. Just the second thing then is kind of more of an internal thing to a challenge that we see with talent management leaders and the talent management function. 61%, almost three quarter, almost two-thirds of heads of talent, when we survey them, tell us that the demands of talent management exceed our capacity to deliver. So we have this constant challenge of, oh my gosh, talent management is so complex and intertwined. It's a tangled web of activities. How can we possibly make sure we're optimizing our focus? And I think these three focus areas give a nice window into actually how might I prioritize? What are some of the where should I be investing my team's time or my time as a talent management leader, versus some other areas that might be nice, but maybe not be quite as important with that kind of overall organizational goal and outcome in mind. Two things I would recommend. First of all, in today's context, it's critical that organizations take a targeted approach to where they're going to do that over investment. And we see a lot of these efforts to be more responsive are in the context of improving technology, um, functionality for the action of talent management itself. And so a lot of organizations are investing in all sorts of different technologies and vendors around better data on their skills, on their workforce's skills. Um, but the reality of where the market is right now in terms of how diffuse it is, how many different vendors there are, is that if you try and achieve this higher level of responsiveness and this precision of skills intelligence across your entire organization, the budget and the actual political capital of attention of your leaders, the cost is going to exceed the amount of the size of your budget and the amount of attention you have. So, it's really important to have a clear rubric for deciding where you're going to focus this attention. One organization we partner with have a really, I think, simple but powerful approach to only investing this differentiated effort in intelligence towards the roles that are most business critical, so the ones that are most critical to the strategy, and secondly, critically, the ones that are most dynamic, the ones that are changing to such a degree that actually the nature of the role itself is changing. And if you don't get to either of those questions, if it's not business critical, well then you shouldn't be focusing there. If it's business critical and um the role fundamentally isn't changing, sure, there are going to be changes to ways of working, but that you don't need that differentiated skills intelligence um to really understand what's changing and how that should inform our build, buy, borrow strategies to more quickly get the right skills in the right place. I would recommend we start with pragmatically with two of the things that we're actually doing to develop our leaders. And one is the talent review process to identify the highest potential future leaders, future and current leaders, and what their development needs are. And secondly, it's around how we invest in our formal leadership development. So when it comes to talent reviews, one of our teams did some research just this year to identify, where is the highest bang for your buck? How can you optimize that process to maximize the return on time and investment? It's one of the biggest time spends we ask of our leaders, our leadership when it comes to talent management. And it's very clear that the two focus areas that most impact success are one, the quality of the inputs that you give your leadership as they're assessing their talent. And secondly, most importantly, how successfully you orient everything about the talent review about development next steps. Most of the time, we are helping our clients with improving a talent management process where 90% of the effort orients around some version of a nine box and saying which leaders sit in which talent sits in which box and how can we properly organize our talent into the different buckets. And then development is an afterthought. So really, really important that everything about a talent review is focused on development. When it comes to leadership development investments, then um, we've actually just done some work on all sorts of like just looking at every part of leadership development and what are the hallmarks of effective leadership development. We've identified a number of hallmarks, but one of them in particular that I really like, and it's perhaps one of the simplest and the most pragmatic ones, is when we think about as we think about our leadership development in 2025 and the in-person moments we're going to have with our executives and future leaders to accelerate their development. Um, Most of you, without thinking, will develop um, programs and agendas that involve the majority of the time leaders being lectured to or leaders sitting in seminars. Our data actually pretty clearly shows that that is the only thing that statistically significantly reduces the likelihood of developing those human leaders or enterprise leaders, another metric that we have for effective leadership. Um, Instead, it's really important that you maximize the return on investment from those by making sure that those in-person moments are really focused on team-based action learning and cohort network development, because they're the things that maximize the impact on leadership development. It's very tactical, but it's just something that most of your listeners, or sorry, most of your readers will be designing in 2025. And so that's just a simple way in which you can get more bang for your buck. Growing talent. This is a really important and actually a more challenging priority for talent management leaders in 2025 than it was, let's say, 2 years ago. So, um, again, we have if we jump up to the employee value proposition to the EVP level, Gartner Gartner advocates what we call a human deal, a much more human approach to um, delivering an EVP that is going to engage, retain, get the performance out of your employees. One of the five elements of that is growth, ensuring that your employees can see their growth at the organization. Uh, that's harder right now because 2 years ago, um, there were 2.5 years ago, I would say there were lots of kind of easy ways to show that to your workforce, to show that they could see themselves growing. There were lots of open requisitions. There were lots organizations were increasing their workforce. There was also really high attrition. So there were lots and lots of open roles to promote your talent into. And that is a really easy way to say to communicate to your employees, you can grow here. Fast forward to today, organizations are much more cautious about the number of growth hires they're opening. And attrition is really low. It has really come back to being really low. So um, today, talent management leaders and how they work with just people leaders in general are having to convey this sense of a growth in a context where there aren't lots and lots of easy promotion opportunities. So, in order to um, deliver on growth, a couple of things that we see organizations doing really well. Well, actually, one thing I'm going to highlight because I think it's just so important. And I think if all managers did this effectively with their team members, a lot of talent management would flow nicely from it. So we saw this really nice organization example of an organization. They developed a um, current role, expanding role, next role framework for talking with talent about their personal growth, their individual performance, and how they should think about kind of growing within the organization. And what that does is really important rather than just current role, next role, is it helps managers and it helps organizations talk with their talent about how they need to be expanding their skill sets within the context of their current role before they might be ready for promotion. Rather than what we see with a lot of organizations where managers, and it's, by the way, it's a really hard conversation to have with your reports to be really transparent about what is and isn't likely when it comes to being promoted. But what we normally see is that conversations focus almost exclusively on the goals that you need to fulfill to get a high performance rating, or the competency model you must tick off to show that you're a strong performer. And what employees hear is, if I fulfill all these things, then I will be promoted. And that's just not the reality. So if you can, this current role, expanded role, next role, framework, and the questions they have and the guidance they give their managers in addition to this, um, sets up a more grounded and realistic conversation about what an employee needs to show in their work to be ready for promotion, if it might happen. And secondly, critically, it decouples the conversation. It just adds, it takes it one step further away from what every employee wants, to be promoted and to get, paid more. But before that, it's what skills, what experiences, what work do I have to have done to convey that I've grown. And I think that is just on the face of it a very simple solution. Obviously, very difficult to scale to all your managers across the organization. But um, if um, if your readers, if talent management leaders could achieve that in their organization at scale, that would have a huge impact on that. Again, that data point of I, as an employee, can see myself growing at my organization. So I'm going to start with uh, the role of a talent management leader, and then expand out. And I think this is really important as we individually look at ourselves in 5 years' time. I firmly believe that what I call technology orchestration is going to be a core competency for us as talent management leaders. There isn't going to be one technology solution that solves this, that cracks this nut for us of taking all that mountain, those mountain of talent and skills data that we have, and putting it together and drawing out the most insightful nuggets of where skills lie in the business or where skills are needed. The reality is you're going to be pulling data from your HRIS system, your HRIS, you're going to be pulling data from your workflow app management app. You're going to be pulling data from your learning management system, your applicant tracking system. And therefore, as talent management leaders, we must invest in developing our digital dexterity and our technology acumen to be able to make decisions on which vendors to partner with, how to best navigate and pulling all that data together, which the business will increasingly demand as we make talent management decisions. So that's something fun will be fundamentally different. Our heads of talent in organizations will have strong technology orchestration skills. Firmly believe that. But then if we zoom out, um, maybe let's talk about the function. Today functions are designed around pretty common centers of excellence. There's talent management functions. There's typically um, a leadership development one. There's a performance management COE. There's one around L&D more generally, et cetera, et cetera. I think one of the byproducts of that desire to be more responsive is that we're going to see HR and talent management functions, I think, look over to their colleagues in IT and learn some nice lessons around how they structure their teams to be more explicitly focused around the outcomes, not grouping together the people with the same expertise. And then lots of the lovely prioritization techniques from more agile project management, especially portfolio management. So how we're prioritizing where we focus our team's time. So I think we'll get much better at applying our resources to the highest priority needs. Um, and then again, if we zoom out to the biggest picture, um, of talent management writ large in the organization, how, people leaders manage their talent day in, day out, because that's actually talent management. Yeah, as I said, I think the nature and the capabilities of leaders will look a lot different because of what's about to happen in the coming 5 years. And then that point around growth. I think the most successful organizations will crack that really challenging nut of kind of moving employees' mindset of growth more firmly away from progression and promotion through career ladders and more explicitly towards developing my skills backpack,